Hi Dixons, I'm Luke Sparks, an Executive Director here at Dixons. In a previous video from this playlist, I talked through our commitment to organisational health at Dixons, inspired by Patrick Lencioni. As I explained in that video, according to Lencioni, a successful organisation has to be two things, smart and healthy. And leaders, according to Lencioni, often pay too much attention to the former and not enough to the latter. Healthy organisations create the kind of culture that takes advantage of being smart. They minimise the poisons of politics and confusion and raise morale and productivity, all the while reducing turnover among their best employees. So the best organisations focus more on being healthy than being smart, and that's what we are trying to do here at Dixons. We haven't cracked it yet, but we are getting there. So in that previous video, I described the 4 disciplines that we have embraced in order to achieve organisational health. The first, build a cohesive leadership team. Once you've done that, create clarity, over-communicate clarity, and finally reinforce clarity. And today I'm delighted to be joined once again by Sir Nick Weller, our CEO, to talk through that second discipline and how we have created clarity at our executive level by answering Lencioni's 6 critical questions in a concise, actionable way so that they can be used in decision making, communication and planning. So Nick, the first critical question, why do we exist?
Well, our mission is a very clear one, and it is to challenge educational and social disadvantage in the North. And of course, there are many forms of disadvantage. Our BAME students, no doubt, will meet certain glass ceilings as they go forward. So will girls still these days, white working class boys indeed too. But nevertheless, for us, what that implies is that we only run schools in areas of high disadvantage. Where we've got high levels of FSM and high levels of SEN that often go with that, and it means that we don't run converter schools, for example, in good and outstanding in more sort of suburban areas. So we focus very much on areas that are currently often struggling a little bit, either by opening new schools, free schools, or in areas that need it, or indeed taking on failing schools and trying to turn them around. So I think that's why we exist, and I think the clarity of that is probably measured by 2 things really. One is it measurable, and I would hope that most people looking at what we've done recently, certainly at secondary, would say that we've been relatively successful at that. We have great successes at primary too, but we're probably less consistent there certainly. And the other thing is, I think that mission tells us what we don't do as well as we do, and I think that it's those 2 elements, that it's measurable and it tells you what you don't do as well as what you do, that actually makes for greater clarity about why you exist.
Absolutely. And I think, obviously on the wall there we've got many minds, one mission. I know certainly when we recruit staff, one of the first things we're looking for, isn't it, is those that are aligned to our mission, challenging educational and social disadvantage in the North. And that's certainly been the driver of our expansion to the Northwest, hasn't it?
It is.
That moral imperative to have more impact across the North.
Yeah, and to operate where we can make the most difference.
Absolutely, yeah. So that second question then, how do we behave?
Well, these are very, very important too, really. We have this rather trite sort of summary, don't we, which is work hard, be good, be nice. But actually underlying that are a set of values that I think we do actually live out, and that's the most important thing, that you actually live out your values. A lot of our students arrive, as you know, below national average, as certainly as total cohorts, and every single student, but as whole cohorts, they arrive well below national average, whether that's at reception all the way up to year 7, and by the time they leave us, they're well above national average. So obviously that takes hard work, and we never hide that from staff when we recruit them and when we induct them, as you just mentioned. And it's also hard work for students too, and to a certain extent for parents, because we are quite a demanding organisation. But you're not going to make that success without working hard. And then, of course, the second element of our values, how we would define being nice, is about showing humility and being a good team player. Education is not an individualistic activity. It's not enough that a child just gets one good qualification. They need a whole suite of them. Education is much broader than the examinations they get. Too. We rely on every member of staff, whether an associate member of staff or a teaching member of staff, to contribute to that It's a team game. If you teach year 10 and 11, you're reliant on what happened at Key Stage 3. You teach year 5 and 6, what happened at Key Stage 1, and years 3 and 4, etc. So, teamwork, humility, they're very, very important to us too, in the way that we operate and in the way we recruit staff. But I think probably the third value, I think, is also extremely important, and that is about being good, or at least showing integrity in what you do. I think if you take on challenging schools, there are all sorts of ways in which, performance measures and that sort of thing, and targets that people set you, they kind of drive you down a route that actually might make the school look good, but don't do much for the children at the end of it. So I think behaving with integrity throughout the whole organisation, ensuring that children get high value, good quality qualifications, for example, in that sense. It's no good doing the first two without that last one. I think also when you teach in communities that would probably perceive themselves as being failed by quite a few institutions, by the state, by the establishment, however you want to put it. I think there is an element of understandable suspicion of anybody who represents that, and I think it's only through openness and transparency and the consistent integrity that you can in any way hope to win people's trust. So I think that's very important to us too.
Yeah, so we're absolutely a values-driven organisation. That's our kind of framework then, isn't it? Kind of, hard work, kind of the goodness, the be good and be nice. But our academies are then, kind of getting into aligned autonomy now, which is going to be in a future video. But our schools, are allowed to pick their own words, aren't they? But they have to align to that. It's got to be 3. It'll be like the rule of 3,
indeed.
And it's got to fit that kind of that kind of pattern. But absolutely, they're not some kind of gimmick, is it? Values are absolutely the core of what we do. Every decision we make, lesson we plan, conversation we have, absolutely rooted in those values. And it is about that hard work and persistence, but also I think humility is something that we feel strongly about, don't we? We often talk about leaders having to have enough ego to make the toughest decisions, but also enough humility to defer to the brilliance of others. And So in terms of the next question then, Nick, so what do we do?
Well, we deliver, we establish high-performing academies, which maximise attainment, which value diversity, which develop character, and also develop a cultural capital. And that's how we would define what we do. I don't think we make any excuse for putting maximising attainment at the top of that list. I think that's for reasons I've already explained really. That's absolutely key. If children are going to break through those glass ceilings they meet, that's what we need to supply them with. But education's far broader than that, that extracurricular or co-curricular curriculum, for example, introducing to other experiences is very, very important to us. We don't just want to be some sort of exam factory. We want our children to value diversity as well, genuinely value it and what they can learn from that diversity, not just pay lip service to it. We are non-faith. And I think that is quite important to us in the sense that we don't mould ourselves around any one community in particular. What we want to do is provide all of our schools, no matter what community they serve, and all of our students with a single, shared, common experience that everybody signs up to. And we always resist opt-outs for that reason from various bits of the curriculum. So that's what we do.
Yeah, so it's that kind of valuing diversity, but also commonality. Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
And absolutely that focus on attainment is key. So that next question then, how will we succeed?
Well, we've developed over the last few years a fairly clear operating model, which is one of aligned autonomy, and then together with that that academic rigour that obviously is necessary for a lot of things that we've touched on already, and also focusing on talent. Some places it's relatively easier to recruit. Leeds is easier to recruit than Bradford is, for example. So focusing on that talent is absolutely key. So in terms of aligned autonomy, we are aligned. We all share the same mission. We all share the same brand, and we benefit from that brand and that reputation in terms of being able to attract students and convince people that if they climb on board and support us, then we will be successful for their children. So there's much to do with alignment that is key to success. Even running central services, for example, it's impossible to run a finance system across unless everybody's operating in the same way. So there are all sorts of ways in which alignment is very, very important. Above all, making sure that all staff and all students obviously have access to our very best, because if you've got something good going on, you want it to be shared with everybody. But at the same time, we talked a lot about independence in the first video that we did together, and unless people have that sense of self-direction, they don't really get a sense of their own personal accountability for what they are doing, and that's all the way up from a student all the way up to a school leader or executive leader. So that autonomy is also absolutely key to us, and key to retaining the very, very best people, because people have got to feel that they can direct their own careers and their own learning. Otherwise, they just lose interest in a job if you're just following some sort of rule book, I think. So I think it's key to attracting the best talent as well. Academic rigour really is based on around our concept of powerful knowledge. That there is a body of knowledge that unless children actually have it, they will always be dependent on those that do have that knowledge. And I think that's becoming increasingly important. I think the idea that you don't need to know anything because you can find it out on the internet is an utter. You can look up anything on the internet, but unless you actually understand the context of that knowledge, you understand nothing about it at all. And these days, increasingly, I think it's important to fact check even adverts that appear on your Facebook page or whatever. You need to be able to fact check. So knowledge, I think, is becoming increasingly important and an increasingly political area of contestability too. And then lastly, third of our sort of strategic anchors, as you might refer to them to, would be talent. It is our teachers and it is our school leaders. They're the ones who actually transform the lives of the children around. Our job is to make that as easy as possible and to facilitate that as much as possible and to support that work as much as possible. But I think we both say that as we've moved away from direct running our own schools, we have become, you become a little bit separate from that, which can be a bit sad because that's often why you went into teaching in the first place. But nevertheless, that talent, at teaching level and leadership is absolutely key, and the way we recruit that, and the way we develop that, and the way we ensure we appoint the right people to the right job to give them the chance to grow and to flourish. That's absolutely key to our success. We wouldn't have been able to grow as successfully as we have done already without that real focus on challenge. And some of that is challenges. You sometimes have to ask yourself, are all the right people floating up to the top of the organisation? And if you spot, a certain group of people that aren't, for example, you have to ask yourself very, very tough questions about what are you doing that's actually preventing that. So it's not just some easy, it's not always an easy thing to say. It often demands that you ask quite tough questions of yourself. Yeah,
it's definitely about freeing those staff from bureaucracy, isn't it, and making sure they're in roles where they can have the greatest impact and add the most value. So it's something that we're having a real renewed focus on at the moment. And I think we're really proud of the work we've done in our three strategic anchors. Aligned autonomy is something that we've worked hard on over the last few years. And so we will pick up on each of those anchors in future videos. That'll pop up quite a lot, I think, in videos as we go forward. So I think that's the first 4 critical questions of Lencioni's 6. And we've very much answered those first 4 questions as a trust. as such, leaders at, at our executive level and from across our academies are really committed to those same answers. And they're the answers that Nick has just shared. However, there are two further questions that Lencioni talks about. And given the nature of those questions, we've actually allowed our academy leadership teams to answer those questions from their perspective. So whereas the first four have been answered as a trust and we all are committed to the same answers, the last two slightly different. And the first of those questions is what's most important right now. So one thing has to be most important. Even if there are other worthy goals under consideration, there has to be that one thing, that kind of rallying call. And more than any of the other questions, answering what is most important right now, will have the most immediate and tangible impact on an academy. And the answer to this question, is often represented as a kind of thematic goal, and it will change over time, as the goal should almost always be achievable within like 3 to 12 months. So the answer, whereas like why do we exist, the answer will should never change. What's most important right now will change between every 3 to 12 months. Now, as you would expect in the moment, for most of our academies, if not all, the goal is focused on our COVID recovery. Hopefully, it won't last longer than 3 to 12 months. And the final question in Lencioni 6 is who must do what. And this question addresses roles and responsibilities. And I think for us, it makes better sense for our academy leaderships to answer this separately. We've answered it as an exec, but I think who must do what. It's important those leadership teams answer it from their perspective. And in order to create real clarity, some of our academies have actually done some quite well developed work on this. Some have listed pretty much every leadership responsibility you could think of in the academy, hundreds on a kind of spreadsheet, and then they've attached each one to a senior leader, just so there's real clarity and everyone knows exactly who must do what and what is expected of them. So some quite developed thinking there. And as a trust, I'm thinking about our shared services. I think we've learned the hard way that that just how important who must do what is, and I know that's again we're having a renewed focus on that at the moment. So that's the 6 critical questions, and that's it for this video. I think I must say, Patrick Lencioni is a big inspiration for us here at Dixon's, and I'll be honest, it's much better listening to him talk about these ideas and listening to me talk about his ideas. So if you do want to find out more about Lencioni's ideas, as I said in a previous video, we will pop some links into the description section of this video, and there's loads of really great resources on his table group site. And I would urge school and trust leaders to go and have a look at that. But thanks again, Nick, and we hope colleagues enjoy exploring this playlist as we drill down even further on who we are and what we stand for.